And welcome back. My next guest is Steve Underleider, the Clarkstown Fire Inspector. Welcome, Steve.
Hi, how you doing, George?
So delighted to have you here. You certainly have been a tremendous asset here within the town of Clarkstown, as the fire inspector, and really pleased, that we were able to kind of move forward. Certainly at my time as supervisor in moving you up to be the fire inspector. You've got a distinguished career in firematic services, certainly here with the town as our fire inspector. But before we get to your job description as fire inspector, let's give the residents a benefit of getting to learn a little bit about you.
Okay.
So maybe you could talk a little bit about your background and your experience, your family.
Sure. I was born actually in the Bronx, but my parents already lived in Valley Cottage. So basically I've lived here all my life except for 5 years. My wife and I lived in Chester right after we got married. Moved back down in 1991 with our oldest daughter. Our middle daughter was born a few months after we moved back down, and then my youngest daughter was born in '96. Went to school in Nyack School District, graduated from Nyack High School in 1976, and we've been back again here now for 27 years.
Talk to me a little bit about your firematic services background. You've been involved, you were a chief, involved in the fire services. So what got you involved in that? What piqued your interest? How did you get involved?
I had some friends, fathers, who had done it through high school, but the biggest thing was after the bus accident in '71, and then there was a fire down the street from my house in 1972, kind of made the idea that when I finally reached 18 at the time that I would join. Mm-hmm. So that was November 1976. So I've been a member of the Valley Cottage Fire Department since November of 1976. I was chief from 2005 to 2007. So
talk to us just a little bit about the Valley Cottage Fire Department, and then by extension, your perspective on just the volunteer firefighters within Clarkstown and the county.
All the fire departments are volunteer. Again, I said it was something a bunch of my friends in high school, their fathers had done, and I knew a bunch of the people. It seemed like a really good way to get involved in emergency services, which at the time, when I was starting to go to college, considered the idea of being a police officer. That didn't really seem to pan out for me. So I just stayed with it, and I got involved in the car business, and so fire trucks, cars, they kind of all go together, and just stayed with it.
Mm-hmm. You've been involved, as a firefighter now for, a good long time, well over 40 mm-hmm. years. When did you start working for the town in the fire inspector's office?
I started working for the town as assistant fire inspector in September of 1996.
Okay.
So 22 years ago.
So you've got a long period of time here in the town. And when did you become actually our chief fire inspector?
I became chief fire inspector in 2015.
Right, so just as you're coming
Yep.
up. And let's talk a little bit about the fire inspector's office. So for the benefit of our residents, who works in it? How many people are in it?
Right now we have 5 inspectors, myself, 2 fire inspectors, Harold Straught and Ken Dillon, and 2 assistant fire inspectors, Mike Healy and Mark Perlowitz, and our secretary, Dina.
And so there's a lot of stuff. I mean, people are like, wow, there's 5 people in this office. What does that do? So what are the principal roles of the fire inspector?
The fire inspector is responsible for inspecting all the commercial buildings, multiple residences and such in the town of Clarkstown to clients with the town and state codes for fire safety. It amounts to about 3,100, 3,200 inspections a year. We review plans for commercial buildings, alterations, new buildings. We go over site plans for new projects. And in the event of a fire, it's our job to investigate it to come up with a cause and an origin.
Mm-hmm. So you guys are doing an awful lot of inspections. And one of the things that's been really great, when I became supervisor, we were down a bit. So we've kind of restocked your office. You brought in some young guys
Yep.
that are doing a great job, as well as you and Harold and Kenny. I can't say enough good things about your office. But we've kind of sped up the process now, because at one point it was just 3 of you guys trying to get caught up and do those 3,100 inspections across the town. But One other aspect is really the whole notion of safety, and also you guys kind of helping us with some of the code enforcement issues. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, a lot of times the fire departments will go out on a call and find something that they're not sure about. So we've told them, call us, we'll go out and investigate, and then we make a referral, whether we take it ourselves and do the inspection or the violations if necessary, or we refer it down to the building department for the code enforcement guys to go out and take a look at. They found, buildings that have been partitioned unpermittedly, extra apartments and houses are here or there, and working with the building department, we've been able to get most of that straightened out.
Right. No, I'm very proud of the fact, because the year before I became supervisor, we had literally about 690, 700 complaints that had been issued that prior year before I became supervisor across the town. A lot of them were illegal apartments, property maintenance, the whole gamut. And last year, at the end of last year, we had well over 1,600 complaints that had been issued and several hundred that had been adjudicated at the court. A number of those obviously were illegal conversions. That's a major safety concern for our volunteer firefighters, that they have to roll up on a scene where there's a fire and somebody's illegally, partitioned walls and things of that nature. And so really delighted with the efforts of all of our enforcement departments within the town. In Clarkstown, we're taking it very seriously in terms of enforcing our building and zoning codes to ensure the safety of our first responders, our residents, and also to maintain the quality of our neighborhoods, character of our neighborhoods, and the property values for folks. Nobody wants to be living next to a house that's been illegally converted, because a lot of times when it's illegally converted, then essentially the house will start to deteriorate. You'll have other things that are going on with everything from just overcrowding, abandoned vehicles, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
When those situations happen, one of the more recent issues that just came up, and again, it was a local volunteer fighting department that contacted the town, and your office got involved with it. They had a house that had been cut up over in the other side of town. Literally, they had like 11 people, areas partitioned off. They believe were living in the house. They had closets turned into bedrooms.
Yeah.
And you guys go in and you kind of help us document the issues and make sure it gets into the code enforcement office, and then we have Leslie Kahn, our prosecutor, who really kind of moves it forward. Are you seeing this type of effort or are you hearing of this type of effort in other towns in Rockland?
I think they are. I don't know that, they get the support maybe from their administrations to keep going after it.
Mm-hmm.
We have, we've never had a spot where we've been told, don't.
Right.
We do our job, and then, if we pass it off to the attorneys or whatever, then we leave it to them. Mm-hmm. But we've never not gone out on a complaint. We've never not written a violation to a property owner based on who they are or whatever. That we don't work that way. We were taught that years ago by Mark Pappenmeyer when he was chief fire inspector. It's like, it's not our job to be liked, it's our job to do what's right.
Right. No, it's absolutely true, and I can't thank you enough for that. We're almost out of time, but before we finish, just going back for a little bit of color for the interview. What's the most serious fire that you've ever been involved with during your firefighting career?
Serious as far as extent would have been when I was chief and we had the fire at Mountain View condominiums, where we had 16 units that were damaged or destroyed. Working here, we had a rash 4, 5, 6 years ago of fatalities for different reasons. Mm-hmm. They've been all in single-family homes, so as much as we don't want to see that happen, it means to us that we're doing our job as far as the commercial buildings or whatever to keep people who live and visit town of Clarkstown safe when they go to the malls or other buildings in town.
Right. I'll never forget. I mean, I'm not obviously not a volunteer firefighter, but I was in very close proximity to one fire back in 2010. or driving in Bardonia and happened to just be driving past a house and there was smoke coming out of it, and happened to be the first person on the scene, and went into the building. And I'll never forget just how scary that is. And I wasn't trained, you know.
Ludwig Road.
Yeah, on Ludwig Road, but I wasn't trained or anything. And you hear the breakers popping and the explosions, and to just see how quickly that house went from a little bit of a fire on one side to full structure fire, fully
Yep.
engulfed, and you know, essentially completely destroyed. So my hat's off to you and to your fire inspectors, who all happen to be members of the Firematic Services, have been involved for very many years, such as yourself, over 40 years as a volunteer firefighter, as a chief. We can't thank you and the members of your office enough, and our volunteer firefighters. We have really low insurance premiums for people in Rockland County because of the quality of Firematic Services. People may not realize that, but because of the way in which this is rated, you know, Rockland is considered an area with really strong Firematic Services, so it helps with people that are paying lower insurance premiums on their homes, you know, for fire protection, because of the quality and the extent of the fire services. And you've been a part of that for over 40 years, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
So that's all the time we have for this. I want to thank you for being our guest, and we wish you well as you continue your service here in the town of Clarkstown and also with the Valley Cottage Fire Department. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
So stay tuned. We'll be right back.